Fertiliser test strips are a great tool to help you identify what nutrients might be limiting pasture growth and what fertiliser products to use. Use the strips in conjunction with soil analysis. Test strips are really useful for identifying trace element deficiencies like molybdenum. Soil tests are not the appropriate method. Leaf analysis is another option. You can include other products in the strips like lime, gypsum, nitrogen, or gibberellic acid to see if you get a response. The best thing about test strips is they let you see how much pasture growth you are actually missing out on. In autumn, select a paddock you have a recent soil test for, but you haven't already applied fertiliser to this year. The paddock I have selected is a rundown phalaris pasture that was sown around 40 years ago. The paddock has a low soil phosphorus level and probably hasn't had molybdenum applied for 20 years. Can the pasture be revived with the right fertiliser, or does it need re-sowing? For the test strips, select an area that is representative of the paddock. You need a 12 metre by 10 metre area for the plan used in this example. This layout allows you to compare 5 products, all with and without nitrogen. It includes a control strip where nothing is applied, and it's important to run the strips down the slope. To get started, measure out the 12 metre baseline. Next, you can use a 3-4-5 triangle to get the right angle on the corners. The strips are 2 metres wide by 10 metres long. Leave a ½ metre gap between the strips. This is a buffer between the fertiliser treatments and it makes assessing the responses easier. Once you've finished pegging out the test strips, you may need to mow or graze off the site if there's too much dry grass or uneven pasture. The table shows the fertiliser products and the quantity required. Weigh out the products beforehand. Use baling twine to mark the boundary of each plot. Apply the superphosphate, the super moly and the super potash fertiliser to their appropriate strips in autumn. Apply the urea to the bottom half of the plots when the soil moisture is adequate before it gets too cold. This could be around mid-May. Apply the gibberellic acid in early June. You can use a watering can to do this. Place the bags of the products at the end of the appropriate strip before you start. This helps you keep track of where you've been. Place the fertiliser in a small bucket and spread it uniformly over the strip area, staying inside the baling twine. Go over each strip twice, using half the fertiliser each time. Remove the twine and then you're ready to go. You'll need to set up a temporary fence so you can keep the stock out, so you can monitor any responses at key times. After you've applied the urea, lock the test strips up for 6 weeks before you make your assessments. Then open the test strips up for grazing. In early spring, you can lock the test strips up again and monitor over the next 1 to 2 months to look for any pasture responses. When you do your winter and spring assessments, you are comparing the treated strips to the control strip and to one another. When you do your winter and spring pasture assessments, things to consider are differences in composition, such as the amount of clover, grasses and weeds, the size and colour of the clover leaves. Dig up some clover plants and inspect the nodules. Differences in pasture height or mass, you can use your pasture ruler to measure this. And most importantly, take some photos so you get a permanent record of the responses. In your better pastures that have good species and good soil fertility, if you just set up 2 strips of nitrogen and gibberellic acid, this will let you see how much extra winter feed you can actually grow.